I now call the May 3rd, 2022 Finance Committee meeting to order at 6:45. Chair would entertain a motion for the approval of the claims.
I make a motion for the consideration of claims to be paid in the amount of $245,095.33. Payroll and liabilities for 4/22/22 in the amount of $471,394.99 for a total of $716,490.32.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Councilwoman Salisbury, seconded by Councilman Pronto. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Is there anything additional that we need to discuss?
Nothing, Your Honor.
I have nothing, Your Honor.
All right, with there being nothing, I adjourn at 6:46.
I now call May 3rd, 2022, regular meeting of the Riverton City Council to order at 7 PM. I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and the invocation will be given by Councilman Larson. I pledge allegiance
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our eternal Heavenly Father, we are thankful for the opportunity to serve the city of Riverton. Thankful for the moisture which Thou hast blessed us with to make this a pleasant place in the desert. We're thankful for all the blessings that we have. We would ask at this time that Thou would watch over and bless our first responders, our police officers, our health workers, those in harm's way. Would ask that Thou would watch over and bless us with insight and understanding that we might serve Riverton to our best ability. And we say this in the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Would the city clerk please conduct a roll call?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilwoman Lindsay Cox.
Here.
Councilman Mike Bailey.
Here.
Councilman Dean Pronto.
Here.
Councilman Kyle Larson.
Here.
Councilwoman Christy Salisbury.
Here.
Mayor Richard Gard.
Here. The chair would entertain a motion to excuse Councilwoman Borders.
Second.
Councilman Peranto has the motion, and Councilwoman Cox has the second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. I declare a quorum is present. Approval of the agenda. The chair would entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Councilman Larson has the motion. Councilman Peranto has the second. Council discussion. Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Communication from the floor. Anyone in the audience wishing to address the council regarding an item that is scheduled for a public hearing will be given the opportunity to speak during that public hearing. Anyone wishing to address the council on another item may speak now. I would ask those individuals who wish to address the city council at this time to approach the podium and identify yourself for the record.
Like a walk of shame or something.
Yeah, that's-
A walk of fame.
Fame. Okay, there we go. Fame. I am Mary Axome, and as the chairperson of the Riverton Community Engagement Committee, we would like to request that the council suspend the operation of this committee indefinitely so that we can unite and join forces instead of a divide and conquer kind of approach with the Riverton ambassadors.
Okay.
And a little history on this. In 2018, the city established a parks committee to evaluate all of our parks, and that merged then into the Community Engagement Committee. And then in 2020, the citizens rallied, and we had an amazing call out and response to volunteerism in our community. And so we feel comfortable passing the torch to our wonderful chamber and the ambassadors.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I will miss seeing you up in the tree.
Well,
Getting
you
the
know, I
garbage out of
still
the
can do
top.
that.
Well, I guess we could do that on Saturdays or something.
Sure.
Just for fun, right?
Yeah, just for fun.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you, guys.
Tony, do I understand you wanted to postpone that till the end of the agenda?
Your Honor, yes, I think it would be more appropriate towards the end during roundtable.
Okay. Thank you. Would the city clerk please read the consent agenda items by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Approval of the minutes, April 19th, 2022, regular council meeting. Approval of the minutes, May 3rd, 2022 Finance Committee meeting. Approval of the Finance Committee recommendations for May 3rd, 2022. Replat of Faison Lamar Edition, Lots 1 and 2, Block 3, Petitioner Asset Allocations, LLC.
Is there any further, is there anything requiring further discussion?
Your Honor, the Finance Committee met earlier this evening and approved the consideration of claims to be paid in the amount of $245,095.33, payroll and liabilities for April 22nd, 2022 in the amount of $471,394.99, for a total of $716,490.32.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Pronto has a motion. Councilwoman Cox has a second. Council discussion. Mike, could you help me a little bit with that zoning request? I drove by there and give me some background more. Can you help me with that zoning, that last item on the consent agenda?
On the replat for the Faison Lamar?
Mm-hmm.
Sure, absolutely. Are there any questions, Your Honor, specific questions that you have on it, or?
Well, I just wondered, is the easement going down the back of that lot now? Is that easement changed to the west side of those lots? Where the pink is in my drawing?
Well, let me,
I like pink. It's a really nice color. I just
Yeah.
wanted to know what we were doing.
so there is an easement going along the west side of that, and then there's also an easement added to the existing,
So we're not,
to the new property line added going east and west as well.
we are adding a new property line between the two buildings?
Correct, yes.
And they still have easement sizes of, I get too blurry to read that, but must be around 7.5, 5.5.
Yeah, so the easement to the west there would, I believe, is 7.5 feet wide on this lot, 7.5 on the other one, and then easement on the new property line is 5 feet.
And so what drove this change? Are those buildings not on their proper lots?
They're not both on their own separate lots.
Okay. And is there just one owner?
Correct.
That's what I thought. And so it's going to be A1 and 2A. It's going to be 1A and 2A, correct? on
Correct.
that? And did they move that middle property line?
That middle property line didn't exist before. That's what they're adding.
And there wasn't one
No.
prior to? That surprises me. And I guess I see that in the other lots.
Yeah, those are in that area right there, the original lots are very narrow and very long. And they're kind of impractical by today's standards to build on. There's a lot of them that have been replatted already or in replat potential status.
Okay. I appreciate that information.
Absolutely, Your Honor.
Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Approval of the Wind River Visitors Council fiscal year budget 23. Helen Wilson, Executive Director's report, please. Hi, Helen. How are you?
May I just give one of these to everybody?
Please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is my second one.
Would you like it?
Ask him for it back after the meeting.
Hi, my name is Helen Wilson, and I'm with the Wind River Visitors Council. And what you have in front of you is our first ever annual report. I've put a few pages in the front cover, and one I just wanted to specifically show you is labeled lodging tax collections. And what you'll notice, looking at this, is we have had a record-breaking tourism year. So it has been amazing seeing the amount of people come through all of the communities and spend their money. But we're also living in a really unpredictable time. So what happened this year was we budgeted quite a bit less than this with our projected budget, and we brought in quite a bit more money than we were expecting to. We're having a record-breaking year, and we still have 3 months left in the fiscal year. So pretty exciting stuff. But we are looking at the coming years and trying to figure out what's going to happen. And with gas prices and news stories, it's just everything right now is very, very unpredictable. But we also do have the 150th anniversary of Yellowstone this year. We're marketing very heavily in the Yellowstone-Jackson Hole area with the hope that when people get to that area, they'll find that it's crowded and we can show them all of the wonderful things that we have in our communities. So that is something that's been kind of new and unique to us is the watching the money come in this year. And I can actually give you the number. When I was up here this time last year, we had actually budgeted $630,000, I believe, for the fiscal year, and we're right now sitting at $835,939.99. What that means is that we have been able to get far enough ahead that we can use reserves as our next year's revenue or income to work on the budget. And what that really means is that we can tell each of the communities exactly how much they're getting. So with the lodging tax, the Wind River Visitors Council gets this big chunk, and 25% of it goes back to the communities in the form of TAD money. And what we've always had to do in the past is just guess how much that TAD money is, and I think it's been a little bit challenging for everybody, for the chambers and for the towns that work with that money. But this way, if we look at the full previous year, so I'm going to go back a step, try to explain myself here. So if you look at this lodging tax collections sheet again, you'll see under the 2020 to 2021, that's the last full year of numbers. So that number at the bottom, 729,499.82, is what we've budgeted for next fiscal year. And that means that we can take 25% of that, which is 182,375, and we can tell the communities how much they get in TAD money. You'll see that Riverton is set at 35.5%, which is higher than both Du Bois and Lander for this fiscal year. So the total for Riverton would be $64,743. Another thing that we were able to do that was pretty exciting, we had budgeted $20,000 to put toward FAST, the airport marketing, and we were able to add an additional $10,000 to that this fiscal year, bringing that up to $30,000, which supports Riverton. And of course, it also supports the other communities because we try to bring people in and spread them around. So there's some numbers right there. I've also, in your packet that I just handed you, you'll also see that there's an explanation of the budget, as well as some numbers in the annual report. The one thing I should mention with the annual report is I did it by calendar year, not fiscal year. And the reason for that is so that the summer is intact instead of splitting up the summer halfway through. So you can see what it looks like in 2021 from January through December. So some of the numbers are slightly different, but that's because it's one sheet you're holding is fiscal year and the other is calendar year. For this year, as I mentioned, we are planning on doing quite a bit of advertising in Jackson Hole area to bring tourists in, and we're also watching what happens. I think that there's just a lot of uncertainty right now with gas prices, and we were seeing people really wanting to go on vacation, and looking at recent news stories now, we're seeing possible recession and possibly gas prices going, maybe going higher than they are now, and we just don't know how that's going to affect us. So one of the nice things about having some of these reserves is that we can, we feel stable. The other thing we have coming up this year is the lodging tax vote, which comes up in November. The lodging tax is a little bit different this year. It is a renewal, but we're asking for 2% instead of 4% because there's a statewide tax imposed as well. So we are guaranteed 2% from the state. We're asking for 2%, which will put us at our normal 4%. But there's some uncertainty there, and it's going to, I think, take a lot of explaining because it is different than the way we've done it in the past. But it is a renewal, and it's 2% renewal instead of a 4% renewal. Should I open it up for questions at this point, or?
Sure.
Great. And we also have some of the Wind River Visitors Council board members here, so I should just mention that. We've got, I think, four board members here. And now I'll open it for questions.
Does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask?
Your Honor,
Mike?
I guess within your budget, you said your amount of the total budget is the same as last year, basically.
Yep.
Do you have last year's broken down numbers that we could look at compared to this year?
Let me see. So you're talking about this sheet here, the lodging tax?
No, I'm talking about your
Oh, you know what? I have one copy that I brought, and I am happy to hand it to whoever would like to look at it.
sure.
It's my one copy, so if you have questions, I'll need to take it back.
So we can write all over it, right?
You can color on it, and I only printed one, thinking I wonder if I'll need this.
Your Honor, while you're looking at that, may I ask a question?
Uh-huh.
So what has your marketing strategies been different from last year? Have you guys, what has changed? Have you done different marketing things?
We have done a lot, and one of the things that we're bringing things in-house. So last year, I was brand new to my position. I was here with Paula McCormick, who'd been doing the job for many, many years. We're trying to bring things very, very in-house. So things like our website design, we've moved it over, or website hosting and maintenance, we've moved it over to County 10. But instead of having County 10 make changes when we need them, we're actually having them train us how to make those changes. We've also moved the graphic design in-house. As far as the actual marketing, we're doing a lot with the state co-ops. We're doing marketing all over the place, but we really have hit Jackson and Yellowstone area very hard this last year, and we are seeing a lot of people coming over from that area, those areas. We're really focusing on what each community has to offer and trying to offer itineraries and tour packages where people can, you fly in here. We just had a really great magazine article that came out with a full itinerary of here's your first day in Riverton, and then here's your second day in Lander, and here's your third day in Du Bois. And we're really trying to promote the diversity of each of the towns and cities, as well as the whole package and how all of it should be visited, and give people options. So if we're sending people to Du Bois, tell them about both of the museums and say this one can take you on hikes. This one you can see some amazing vehicles. We've also been working really hard on partnerships. So really trying to connect with the University of Wyoming and with all of our communities and with all of the businesses. But we're working with the Wyoming Office of Tourism on backcountry discovery routes. We have a film showing on the 21st of May. We've been working with quite a few people on getting Du Bois and Lander recognized as gateway communities for the Continental Divide Trail. It looks like at this time Du Bois is on hold with that for quite a while, but Lander is moving forward. Actually, the dedication ceremony was supposed to be tonight, but because of short staff, the application is still being reviewed, so we don't have a date yet. But as far as I know, they have everything we need. So we've been working with a lot of partnerships with people, really promoting their businesses and seeing what we can do for them. And then trying to look at our museums and our outdoor recreation and what people are looking for right now. I think, a lot of people who live in big cities have been a little bit claustrophobic with COVID. And so we have our trademarks of room to roam, room to breathe, go beyond Yellowstone, and we have been pushing them hard. So those are some of the strategies, just following what's working for other people in the state and the country. The state, some areas are seeing elevated numbers. We are seeing very elevated numbers, and if you compare the increase to us compared to the rest of the state, people are coming to us, and I think a lot of that is overflow from Jackson and Yellowstone, but also making sure we're marketing in the right places. We do have, today is Tuesday, we have some media coming in tomorrow it's from Cowboys and Indians. They're gonna be doing a tour of the area, seeing our areas and hopefully writing up something really nice for us in that magazine. We also have somebody who does freelance work for VIA, the AAA magazine. Wyoming, I think people like to take road trips, and so despite rising gas prices, we are marketing to those people who like to take road trips. Another big thing that we're working on is a county-wide event called the Wind River Rally. And last summer, we helped send some influencers into the winds, and they gave us some amazing video and amazing photography, and they do van life tours. And these are nice vans, $100,000 vans that people live in and travel around. And it's about promoting and exploring beautiful places, is I think how they word it. And they had asked if they could camp at Lander City Park and do excursions throughout the community. And of course, Lander City Park in the summer with 200 vans isn't gonna work. So we have them staged in Hudson, which I think is great because we're trying to bring more awareness to Hudson as kind of an artsy town and with a very strong history. So people are gonna be staged there, and then we have excursions they can do in each of the communities each day, and they're picking and choosing those on a website. But we're starting, the evening activities are kind of set. Thursday evening, there's a Lander Live in Lander, and then Friday evening is Taste of Riverton, and the restaurants in Riverton have been amazing about forming this event where it's kind of, my understanding is it's gonna be like a progressive dinner kind of thing where people get a little bit here and there. So that'll be the Friday night activity. Saturday night, of course, is happy hour and a tour of downtown Hudson. And then there'll be cleanup events and excursions. And this, I think, will bring quite a bit of recognition to our community through social media. Social media is so huge right now. And we have really focused strongly on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. And we're adding Pinterest to the mix, which we have an account, but it needs some love. So we're going to give it some love this year and add to our social media campaigns. It has been really, really neat to see, and I didn't bring the list, but I just got an email today from our public relations person, and she always sends me links of where we're showing up, and that's because of press releases and things that we're sending out. And this is why I can't even name it, because I was like, wow, this is a really long list. And of course, it's all links and news stories that other people are writing, and it's earned media is what it's called. So it's technically free, although those press releases and the public relations firm aren't free. Is that a really long answer?
We'll save you a lot more questions.
See the previous year?
I think we have some others that I'd like to hear from in the audience, so why don't we, and I'll pull you back up. I think this is important I'll ask you to come back up, so.
That sounds great. And I will.
Sometimes you have to get permission instead of forgiveness.
Well, and I just somehow, even though I was talking, I made a mess of your podium here. Okay.
That's all right, it cleans up. Thank you. Ellen, that was a good presentation. Thank you.
Thank you for having me here.
My name is Julie Buller, and I serve on the Wind River Visitors Council Board, and I was appointed by you guys to be on that board. And for the last year, I've been there, and I'm still trying to understand how the board works and the processes that we go through. but there's just a couple things that I'm looking for your guidance on, because I just, as a taxpayer and as a representative of the city of Riverton, I would like some input from the council and the mayor as to how you guys feel about how things are progressing with Wind River Visitors Council. With this budget, to me, and this budget was approved by Wind River Visitors Council Board, but I will tell you it was not unanimously approved. And when I say that, it's because there was discussion over the process. Not any, the people in particular, but just the process. The process being that the board really had no input in this budget. It's presented to us pretty much the same way it's presented to you. And then the Wind River Visitors Council Board meets in 2 months they meet every 2 months. Then Helen will give us a report then on how the items, the line items, and how things are being spent and the projects that are being spent on. And Riverton is probably the lone ranger out there on this board, and has been for a few years, because we feel like we've not gotten the representation in Riverton from the Wind River Visitors Council. That is not by the fault of Helen, our new executive director. This board was basically managed, and this budget was managed by Paula McCormick over in Lander, and she was given this money and spent it how she saw fit, and there was really not a lot of input from the board. And so us in Riverton feel like we kind of got pushed to the sideline, because Lander and DuBois, they have the assets there. They're able to market those very easily. And that's basically what the Wind River Visitors Council job is, to market that. But it is also for tourism destination development. And then over the last couple of years, Riverton has really stepped to the plate, as Mary had said earlier. We want help developing our assets here. We need to do more than just marketing Riverton. We need help developing these assets. And so that brings me back to the board as far as input. I mean, are we just advisory board members to the Wind River Visitors Council, and that's sufficient to you and the taxpayers? Or do you want an active board that's out there trying to collaborate with the executive director and come up with marketing plans that are effective throughout all of Fremont County, including Riverton? And so that's basically what I'm asking, is for the direction from you guys on how you guys would like me as a representative to go into those board meetings. Is it just acceptable to say, here is the budget, without any input into it? And it is my understanding from past board members that there was a committee, a budget committee, that did sit down and go through a line item and help create that budget. And during the discussions that we had with this budget approval, our treasurer wasn't even aware of some of how this money was spent, so he took time and met with the accountant. And we have not had follow-up information on that to determine how our treasurer feels after that meeting. Another discussion that we had before this was approved was increase in salaries. And my concern with the increase in salaries on the budget isn't that the persons aren't, that they haven't done the job, and that they may need them. I mean, they may be, I'm looking for the right words, but I'm losing them. Basically what I'm saying is that there's no oversight. When we formed this note, so Paula McCormick managed this budget for us for 20-some years. And then when she decided to retire, basically what happened is the board came up with a new business model, which was hiring supposedly three people were going to be hired. They kept it down to 2. So we have an executive director and a community engagement director. And those 2 people do not really have, that I can see as a board member, there's really no matrix for measuring their job performance. There's no performance matrix. So I have a hard time giving increases when there's no matrix in place. That was a discussion that we had at the board meeting about coming up with some ways to do that, but that has not been done yet. So full disclosure to you guys, we've got an increase in the budget for salaries, but there's no performance evaluation that's in place. And so I think with this new structure with the Wind River Visitors Council, I just feel like we need to come up with a better business plan and managing this money in a way that the council's happy with and that the citizens are happy with, because this is taxpayers' money. So I'm asking you guys for the direction. If you guys want me to just go sit on that board and mark the box and say, rubber stamp everything, I'll go to those meetings for a little while longer and rubber stamp. But then I'll get bored with that because I want to be a working member on that board. And I think that the structure of it is such that for 20 years, we've let a marketing firm do it, and that's pretty much the role we're still in right now with an executive director doing it. It's just in somebody else's hands, but it's same business model, basically.
Thanks, Julie.
Thank you.
Hal, do you have anything you want to add?
Mayor. Julie, can you come back up? If you would, please, I'm sorry. You're asking for direction, but you're not giving any of your ideas or solutions. You want to be an active member. What do you perceive? Don't go away, Hal. What do you perceive that you could add to that would change it, that would improve it? Because I know you're a fireball.
When you say what could I add,
No, I don't mean it that way. I mean, by being a rubber stamp, you're wasting your time. By being an advocate, you're adding to it. What do you see that you could do that would improve that or add to the matrix?
well, when I went to the Lodging and Tourism Conference in the Fall Summit, it was obvious that we needed to form working committees on our board. And so we came back to the board and tried to form working committees, and that didn't work. The board really, gosh, this is difficult because when you say, what can I do? If the board is used to working in one way and the Lone Ranger comes in and wants to change it, it doesn't meet with a lot of,
Success?
yeah. And so,
So you're implying or inferring that the board is satisfied with
status quo.
the status quo versus what you feel it should be.
That's true. And the reason I feel the way I feel is because I do not feel that we're effectively there's not enough oversight, and that we're not taking care of the taxpayers in the way that we should be. I just feel like that we're just, and it's obvious, because Riverton wasn't getting the exposure that we needed to before. Now that we are speaking up and doing things, we are. So I just think that we need an active working board that can all sit in that room and come up with, we need to collaboratively come up with different ideas for what we can do here. I don't think that should be a one-person decision that's making that, because you got one person that's trying to distribute that money between all of the communities, and we all have different needs. I mean, for example, that Continental Divide Trail, that money and efforts, the University of Wyoming is the one that stepped up and helped with those efforts. We're screaming in Riverton to get people to help us come up with destination development. Those efforts were focused on Du Bois for that. Du Bois doesn't even want it. They don't want those tourists there. They don't want that designation there.
Well, they're full.
No, but that's what I'm saying is
Yeah.
that if we were having those board discussions about these things and saying, hey, is that logical that we should be going up to Du Bois, and would those representatives from Du Bois on the board say, well, we don't want people up there in Du Bois? And then the representatives of Riverton would step up and say, well, what can we do for Riverton? I mean, those are discussions that we should be having in our board meetings. But now we're getting into the Wind River Visitors Council board meetings. And there's a lot that we could go circles on. And bottom line is that I just feel that it's okay with the majority of the board to let one person handle this job for our county with very little, if any, input truly from the board.
Okay, thank you.
So in my opinion, that's not effective based on what I know that we want here in Riverton. Is that what the others want? Apparently not, because they're all fine with status quo.
Thank you.
Al, how are you tonight?
Sorry?
Good.
My name is Al Heron. I too serve on the Wind River Visitor Council Board, as I was placed on there at the request of Mayor Gard, as was Julie. I guess what I would have to say, in addition to what Julie said, is if you look at, I personally am not coming here to ask about what the city council wants me to do. I think it was the voice of the mayor, which represented the city council, as to having some representative on the Wind River Visitor Council Board. And I think your expectation, I'm assuming this, of the mayor, which represents you, is that you want me to be that voice on, in this case, the Wind River Visitor Council, or whatever board I serve on. So I would hope you would have the confidence in making that allocation of that seat to either me or Julie or whomever, that you did it with trust and confidence. Otherwise, you would have picked somebody else. The Wind River Visitor Council has changed, as you well know. As Julie indicated, it was based on a consulting basis with Paula McCormick, who did, in my estimation, I think a reasonably good job. And she had the best interests of Fremont County in mind. Previous to Julie and I joining this board at your request, the previous Wind River Visitor Council Board had decided that they were going to opt for paid employees. Helen, she wasn't the original executive director. That person left, I think, before I got on. But anyway, fast forward, we are where we are today. That was the model that the Wind River Visitor Council Board decided that they wanted to go down. They wanted to have more control over the allocation of the assets, the monies coming in, and the marketing programs that support this county. And I think it was probably prudent to do that. Many of the things that, and the activities and research that McCormick Marketing did is now being done by either consultants or with Helen and her employee. I think it's early in the game. I don't agree with Julie in terms of the board rubber stamping. I think it's just a bit too early yet. I think the items that are presented by Helen and staff to the board, I think are pretty straightforward and well thought out. But again, it's early yet. Can there be some changes? I think so. There's no question. But I think if we put our confidence in this case, Helen, then we should let her run and see how she does. And in my opinion, she's doing a fine job. So when it comes to budgetary issues, should we have had some more time? Maybe. I went through the budget, and I think, and when you compare it to last year, like Mr. Bailey was suggesting, we're fortunate because more monies are flowing in. Now, I don't know if that's going to occur next year and the following year because of some of the things that Helen expressed. Are we going to go into a recession? I don't know. Gas prices, is that going to cancel some vacation plans? I don't know. But at the end of the day, I don't think this is the forum, perhaps it is, for us, for me to come and say, I have these, I don't like maybe what the situation is. I think that's something that we could have done privately with the mayor and so forth. But if you ask my opinion, I think things are going fine. Can they be improved? Julie hits on some wonderful points. But it's a learning curve. We've just been into it a year.
Thanks, Hal. Appreciate it. Any questions for Hal? I should have asked on Julie. Anybody have a question for Hal? Owen. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Owen Sweeney. I am currently the vice president of the Wind River Visitors Council, and I'm a little uncomfortable standing up here because I think that there were some things that were brought forth by Julie that were discussed in executive session at our last meeting. And so some of the things that have been revealed to you, I'm not sure that was appropriately done. So I'm going to try to limit my comments to keep confidence, given the fact that some of these things were discussed in executive session. But I want to say that I think I can provide a little more perspective. I've been a member of the Visitors Council since 2.5 years ago. I was appointed by the City of Lander to be one of the 2 representatives. And I'm somewhat flabbergasted because we have had 2 of the best years ever in the history of this organization. And Helen has done an absolutely tremendous job. She came into a situation that, unbeknownst to the board, it was a hostile working environment, and she had the courage and the bravery to bring that to our attention, not knowing whether the person who we hired was our guy and we were going to keep him on board and you can just take a hike. But it was because of her that we were able to get rid of someone who was causing great damage to the organization. And it's true that Helen didn't come into this role with a lot of the skill set that was particular to the role that she fulfilled, but we were so impressed with the work that she had done up to that point that we unanimously voted her to be the executive director. And we have been extremely pleased with the work that she has done. After that first year where she was partnering with Paula McCormick, the marketing plan that Paula and Helen put together was so successful that during the COVID year, all counties in Wyoming lost money, lost lodging tax revenue. But Fremont County was 4th on the list from the top. Right? That we lost the 4th least amount of money, if that's said correctly. And we were up there with the heavy hitters. We did a tremendous job. The staff did a tremendous job on that. And some other points, if I may, just give me a moment here. Some of the criticisms that Julie has shared here were leveled not at Helen, but at Paula. And Helen has come in and stepped in and remedied some of those issues that we saw, including saving a lot of money for the organization and being able to turn that money around and use it in ways we thought were better spent. That budget that you have been presented with was an extremely successful budget. And the fact that it mirrors this upcoming year's budget, for which we are seeking approval, mirrors that because it was so successful. So I was on the actual budget committee that approved the 2 years prior that we then sent up to the board. So I was on a working committee that worked, and we went through the numbers, we went through the lines, and we approved it and moved it up to the board. I was not on the budget committee this year. I don't know if there were discussions had about that, but I do know that when we were presented with that budget, we had the opportunity to go through it. We had all the information, we had all the numbers, and there was true, not universal approval of it, but it was certainly, the great majority of the members of the board approved that budget. So those are just a few comments. If any of you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer. But again, just overall, after 2 years of such great success, it's a bit disturbing to hear someone on the board who has such significant criticisms of the organization. I think the organization has been managed and run in a very responsible way.
Any questions? Mike?
Your Honor. Go ahead.
How many members are on the committee for the budget committee that discuss it?
When I was on the committee 2 years ago, I think there were about 4 or 5 of us. I don't remember. It's been a while.
And like representative from each community then?
Yeah, the previous president, Mr. Preston, was on that committee. Paula was a part of that. I was a part of it. There were people from all the different municipalities. Perhaps not every single one, but certainly there was a representation from multiple municipalities.
Mike?
I mean, I guess my biggest thing, and again, we're just getting ready to go into our budget processes also.
Sure.
And of course, I think all of the cities and towns in Fremont County are fighting the same problem as we don't have more money
Sure.
to play with. And I guess to me, and I'm not saying that anybody isn't doing their job, and I think overall the marketing has been good. You know, Riverton's complaint in the past has always been just, we need to see a bigger share of that pointed toward Riverton, not just Lander and DuBois, which we've already discussed. But in the previous year, and if, I don't have it in front of me, but it looks like you had 3 employees, one at 60, one at 50, and one at 40. And then this year you have 2 employees, one at 85 and one at 41. Which, if my math's correct, the 61 went from 60 to 85, which is like 35%. 40, okay. I guess that's challenging to me, because if the rest of the employees at the city of Riverton look at that and go, well, we're not getting a raise, or we're getting a 2% cost of living, and somebody at the visitor council is getting 40%. That's the challenge. Now, I realize you're doing it with less.
Right.
Maybe you added more duties. I don't know what those are, but I guess that's my fiscal question.
No, I understand. And again, this is where we get into, I want to be careful about what to say and what not to say. I know that it was discussed, brought to us that when you're looking at direct destination marketing organizations, pardon me, that have the kind of budget that we do, there was Helen brought forth to us some numbers from different organizations around the state, and what was being paid at those like budgeted, like funded organizations and municipalities, regions, lodging tax boards. Again, I want to be careful here about our discussion. It was discussed that the number we would approve, but there might be different ways to go about coming to that number, whether that was just going to be a flat number straight up front, or if there were going to be incentives that would allow the staff to to reach those based on certain benchmarks. There was going to be and I don't know if I believe it's still in existence. I don't know if it has gotten together to meet yet. I was not a member of that working committee, but there was going to be some discussion and some research about this. Yes?
Do you mind if I just say 2 things?
Please do. Hal.
The reason he's he-helming around is we formed a committee, compensation committee, to look at that line item. It's sensitive to Wind River Visitors Council, I don't want, but suffice it to say, that line item hasn't been determined yet. And I have a committee for compensation. Mr. Highsmith serves on it, and several others representing the communities. We've made I prepared a memo. We all agreed with it. With their input, we edited it. It's now with the chairman of the Wind River Visitors Council, and this issue will be brought up at the next meeting. So it may not be what's on that line item today. That help?
A lot.
Thank you.
Any other questions for me?
Well, and I don't know if the question's for you or not, but
Okay.
I'll follow up.
Please.
Okay, so with the numbers you're showing us, it obviously looks like this year's going to do tremendously better than last year. If you just keep the same trend up, we're going to
It looks that way, yes.
close to $1 million compared to 730.
That's right.
So you built your budget based on 730 number. What are you going to do with the leftover? Is that going to do a budget change mid-year, or, and I guess, and I don't know the answer to the question,
It's
which is why
certainly
I'm
possible.
asking.
I mean, it's a budget, right? It's a benchmark. Not a benchmark, it's a guidepost. It's like, here's where we think we're gonna be.
So, you know, we have to follow the intent of the law that get put into place to put the tax base into your committee.
Right.
Are they able to keep reserves and/or carry over money year to year? Or I guess, because I got the assumption from what Helen said is that some of that's maybe to carry on for future years, it might be down a little bit.
From what I understand, and we have consulted both with our attorney and as well as some consultants who work in the tourism industry for Wyoming, and it is very common for organizations such as this to carry a reserve account. I can speak for my own organization, the Lander Chamber of Commerce. We have a reserve account that we keep, and we've never had an issue with it. And so I don't see any reason why legally there would be an issue with carrying a reserve. We have a policy to keep a certain reserve. There's some question over the wording of that policy about exactly what it means. But I know that there was some discussion with Helen about going back and looking at that reserve policy and making it more clear, because right now the wording is not terribly clear. But there is a policy in place to maintain a reserve account.
Okay.
Your Honor. So will the communities be able to get 25% of the additional monies towards activities? Will it be allocated in the same way the other part was?
That I don't know. I don't know.
And who will be?
Anybody else? I think you might be able to help with that.
So the model that we're looking at changing to is a model that Park County is already using. And so basically, and I'm going to pull up this lovely sheet again here that we were looking at earlier, which now I'm not going to be able to find. This one. So basically, you'll see that the current fiscal year, 2021 to 2022, we still have 3 open months. And so that will be the following fiscal year's budget. So that basically means we're always a year behind, and we can also tell people, this goes till the end of June. A couple of months later, it takes a couple of months to get the numbers, but a couple of months after that, we'll have that filled in, and that means that people can budget ahead. So looking at this sheet again, what you can see is 2020 to 2021, we've got a good budget. 2021 to 2022, an amazing budget. So that'll be the 2023 to 2024 fiscal year. As for extra money, I think we might actually come in, and we're not at the end of the fiscal year yet, but I think we might actually come in slightly below the 729,499.82, and that's gonna. So I don't see extra money until the following year, and then we'll know exactly how much that money is. So this will hopefully make it so that this is what we made. Next year we spend it and everything is really, really clean. And I do understand that the transition is not fun. And we have checked into it as Owen mentioned, with the state and with the attorney as well. And we're looking at that reserve policy and making sure that we're doing everything the right way. But Park County, they adopted this model a couple of years ago, and it's working really well for them for planning. So I think that because we're in a place right now where we're actually able to do this, I think we should. That's my thought.
Helen, while you're still up, you have the literature in front of you. Can you turn to page 3 in the color pamphlet and to the TAD distribution?
Yep.
Did I jump in too early?
No, I'm good.
Anybody else have a question? Dean?
No, sir. Go ahead.
Kyle?
Oh, go ahead, Your Honor.
The TAD distribution for 2021, Du Bois is $82,018. Riverton is $71,723. Now, everything that I've been given, and I turn to your next
Yep.
information, has Riverton at 35.5, the highest percentage on the page, and we're back down to 64,743.
And something that's, with this colored book, this is the calendar year and not the fiscal year. And so I added from the actual distributions from January to December instead of from July to June. And that's why the numbers are different there. We do have all of those numbers, and I can definitely send them to you. But we have, actual numbers, and it was just a matter of adding them up in a different way because it was January to December.
So if these budgets hold, which is previous year income to what we already have collected in '22, we're gonna be a little over $1 million.
I think that we might be, looking at this number, so I've been trying to be really careful with it, so I've just been adding, a previous year and just putting it in there, and I would say we're gonna fall slightly below $1 million for that.
Okay,
Because if you add the 45, the line next to it, 45.
45 and 45 is 90,
Yeah,
then 62 takes us up to 150 added on.
yeah, so I think it's gonna be slightly below $1 million, and it's just so tricky, and I can tell you that this is the first thing I do every day when I come in, is go to the Department of Revenue website, go to page 57 of their sheet and see if there's a new number there, because it's a really exciting time in the office to see where we're at with this. The April number, well, it probably won't show up for another month, but this will make it so that in August-ish, we can say this is the income, this is the revenue from this fiscal year, and let's plan ahead. So we'll have a better idea. And then once we actually start doing this, it should run very smoothly for us. And this is, in my thought, this is such a better way for all of our communities to plan, because we can say, next year, not this coming up fiscal year, but the year after, plan for those big projects. And the other kind of neat thing about it is if you look at the 21 to 22 here, the communities, Riverton included, of course, has gotten their percentage of this, and it's been a very, very good year for TAD money. You're going to see that again, not this fiscal year, but next fiscal year, because we'll be using that line. And it's getting late, so I'm starting to not make sense to myself. But yeah, you've got your line there, and that will continue to next fiscal year's budget.
Thank you, Helen. Mayor Highsmith, do you have anything to add? Okay. Well, come on up. That's why we asked you.
The only point, there may have been some confusion. A couple of years ago, there was a budget committee. We didn't have one this year.
Mayor, for our audience, would you state?
Excuse me, Mayor Joel Highsmith.
Who is a mayor?
I'm treasurer for the Wind River Visitors Council.
So did you get anything from the accountant that you didn't feel comfortable with when you visited?
After review, I just like to see more information than what we're used to giving. I've met with the accountant twice. We had good meetings. I think we walked away there, good.
Was he good at his math as you are?
Probably better. I don't know. We didn't get into that, but
I kind of doubt.
he should be better. He's pretty good at math. But no, I sat down with him twice. Helen and I went in once and went with him, and we went over some the way the accounting is done, and over the contract what they're expected to produce for us, and I'm maybe just more used to looking a little more in depth at a budget than what was done in the past. But that's maybe my preference. I think everything's on the up and up with the accountant. There's nothing wrong there. But other than that, like I said, we didn't have a budget meeting. But other than that, when we're Wind River Visitors Council, we're working through it.
Thanks, Mayor. Appreciate all your time.
Can I ask one question? So how is the rest of the council involved with how are they involved?
The
If
council-
they're not, if
Council
they're not,
consists of 9 people.
so how are the other ones?
Or
10.
Or
10?
How are the other ones involved with the budget?
Well, it's brought to the board, Wind River Visitors Council Board, and we vote on it as this body, governing body would, the governing body, we're joint powers, we're an extension of the municipalities and the county. County has 2 representatives, Du Bois has 2 representatives, Riverton and Lander each has 2 representatives, and Shoshone and Hudson each have 1.
So how do they have an involvement before it comes to the vote, is my question. What kind of input do they give prior to it coming before them for a vote on it?
We're presented the budget, which we reviewed, and we talked about it. That was, and kicked it around, asked questions, and moved forward, but we weren't involved, or I was not we didn't have a budget committee this year, so we weren't involved in the preparation. I believe it was already mentioned that what was done was they used the template was used of the past year's budget, and with maybe some tweaking with what actually is getting done, where the next year's plan on marketing and budgeting, and I'll admit I'm not a marketing specialist, so, but I'm sure that was how it was developed. I'm sure, and anybody, Owen or Helen, can correct me or come up, and have any. I asked for help.
Our board chair, I meet with him probably 2-3 times a week, and we sat, and because a lot of the numbers that you see on the budget, I'm looking at what we want to do, talking to the state, looking at the co-ops and the co-op opportunities, looking at what's worked for us this year, what hasn't worked for us this year, and just kind of playing with those numbers. But it's Randy Lahr, who's the board chair, who I meet with a couple of times a week and call him and ask questions all the time. So before I presented the budget, and the budget was sent to the board several days ahead of time, but I met with him, showed him what we were doing, explained it all. He asked questions, looked at it. I'm not sure if he talked to anybody else, but then it's sent to the board and then presented to them as well.
So just to clarify, so previously the board decided to adopt a certain template, but this year they just went with it without the board adopting a template to develop the budget? I'm just.
It's not really a template. A lot of the things that we look at, so I'll give you an example. So social media, we use a woman named Tia Troy, who used to work for the Wyoming Office of Tourism and uses her own business now. And so I met with her and we looked at how well social media is doing. I looked at trends in the industry. We decided to add Pinterest. So I got a quote from her proposal for next fiscal year, and then so that raised social media just slightly. Things like the website development, we're doing it in-house, so I looked at, okay, so how many hours of training are we actually putting in? Let's estimate we're doing 2 to 3 hours of training, take that number, figure out the exact hour rate, and figure it out that way. So we really looked at what has worked this year and what hasn't. Another thing we did last year was we had a pretty expensive contract with a company called Truly 360 that was doing Google Maps for us, as well as community training where there's Google My Business and things like that. And looking at this really carefully, it kind of showed that the Google Maps wasn't doing much for us and it was kind of a mess, but the community training is what people liked. So instead of budgeting the $15,000 for the Google Maps and the community training, we've budgeted $7,500 for community training with County 10, who can go to communities and help local business owners get their websites up and running and help with search engine optimization and things like that.
So just, I'm not saying what it was done is, I mean, the things you make sense, some of the stuff. I was just more trying to figure out the process. So you send it to them and then they give you input prior to the, I mean, so you can say, this is what I think will work, and they can say, well, did you try this social media? Or, I mean, how does that process work?
I feel like that's an ongoing process all year. We have a board meeting every other month, and this position is marketing. It's marketing our community. And so when I do the director's report during our board meetings, as well as send out an email report the months in between, that's when the questions come up. That's when people are asking. That's when people are looking. So even though the budget is presented at our March board meeting, it is an ongoing discussion throughout the entire calendar year.
And all the council participates in that.
All of the council has the opportunity to participate in it and ask questions too. And one of the things I'm working on right now is getting ready for our March or May board meeting, and I'm coming up with a definition list of just some of the things that we're doing, because not everybody has a marketing background, and we can throw things out, and that way it's almost like we have a little dictionary of what we're doing.
Your Honor.
Yes.
Why did you decide not to have a committee for your budget this year?
I wasn't actually aware that we'd ever done that in the past until I'd heard about it. This is my second year doing the budget, and last year I worked on it with Paula McCormick. I am a big fan of committees and people working together and involvement, and one of the things I've really tried to do is just be transparent with people about what we're doing, which is what, the annual report and all that. So it wasn't a decision that I made or didn't make. It was just, I didn't know we'd previously done that because we didn't do it last year.
Wow. As the new guy on the city council, I've had to do a little bit of research to find out what the Wind River Visitor Council actually does. Kind of beyond just the website, because I don't hear that much about it. And I think that comes out as a negative, only because as much money is flowing through the Wind River Visitor Council, I kind of expected to have known more about it, being a 30-plus year resident of Riverton. And I have heard about it just kind of in the periphery without really being aware of what your involvement is and the task that you're really given to market our communities. And I hear about it more in Lander. I have family in Lander as well. And so it comes up more in Lander. Your physical presence is in Lander. And it kind of, to me, is, like I said, kind of the outsider, it feels a little bit like we're not as heavily represented as other communities.
And that is a great point. I think what we do, and that is something that I have struggled with letting people know for the last year. One of the things that I've really been pushing is when we do something to market the community, we're really pushing for the logo to be on there so that people see our logo and say, oh, that's a Wind River Visitors Council project. I'm still struggling with that. So, something like I'm trying to think of a good example in Riverton, but something like the monitor at the airport. That was put in before my time, but for a while our logo wasn't on there, so nobody knew that was funded with the lodging tax money. With grants and things like that, and events that people are putting on, we're really pushing to try to get that logo so that people are seeing what we're doing. We are involved in tons and tons and tons of projects. And everything from, there's a Why Responsibly campaign, which is the Wyoming Office of Tourism, and promoting being responsible and bear safety and traveling responsibly. And so I have really tried to make it so that each of the communities is equally represented in the projects we're doing. So we helped with bear bins in Sinks Canyon, so that's Lander, and we're helping with bike racks in Riverton, and they're both Why Responsibly campaigns. So lots of projects like that, but yeah, a lot of it, I think, is just making sure that people are aware of what we're doing by making sure that the logo is on projects. Another example, so we wanted to have the Continental Divide Trail project. So we're having a dedication ceremony for that in Lander. But then we're doing a backcountry discovery routes in Du Bois, and we're doing a national travel and tourism celebration in Riverton. So we're really trying to make it, I've got this, what you're saying isn't something new. I've heard this a lot, and so every time we do a project, it's like, okay, so it's almost like I've got my whiteboard, and it's like, okay, let's make sure all of these things line up, because we want to represent the communities in an equal way, and also celebrate the diversity of the communities. So something like National Travel and Tourism Week, Riverton is known for being able to throw a really good event. I mean, you guys have the balloon rally, and you've got so many events, and Carol.
We have a cool airport, too.
You have a cool airport, which supports the whole community.
It does.
So, so really just trying to make sure that communities are equally represented has been something that I have really worked at, but also not just saying, okay, we're doing this here, so we have to do the same thing here, but looking at what the communities can offer and making those itineraries where, you can go and have breakfast here, and then you can go to this community, and then you can go here. And definitely, that was one of the things when I came into this position, in all transparency, that was one of the things I was hearing. What do you guys do? Why do you do more over here and not over here? So logos, I can't stress that enough. Everybody needs to use logos so that we know what the Wind River Visitors Council is doing. But things like the museum, the treks, we sponsor those. We've got all kinds of projects, and I'm happy to come up with a bigger list. There's 10 of them on the back of that annual report. This annual report here, this is our first year doing this, and I started it this year at 8 pages and kept it pretty simple because we wanted to get it out. But I would like to increase that for next year and have a full list of the projects that we were involved in.
I think that's really important because there's a fiscal responsibility that goes with public money. And one of the concerns as we're looking at the budget and just hearing the comments is not having that oversight of a board is really, it's really important to have the oversight of a board. That's kind of one of the reasons why you have a board, so not any one person is totally responsible for dealing with public funds. So when I look at salary increases, and they may be perfectly warranted, but when I look at, we talk about sustainability and not knowing how long this potential bubble is going to last, if we make drastic changes, or if you make drastic changes to salaries of like 40%, is that sustainable?
And I hear what you're saying with that, and I'm actually not part of the discussions with that salary.
I get it, and those discussions are public because it's public money, right? You don't talk specifics about personnel per se, but salaries and so forth are a public item, and we discuss them here, and it's just what it is. But that sustainability piece is important, especially if we're looking at doing more with less.
Yep. And I hear that. And with the salary, that was research that I did. When I stepped into this position a year ago, and I do need to say this is a really fun position, but it's also a lot of responsibility and a lot of stress and very, very long hours, every 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. meeting and thinking about marketing campaigns in the middle of the night. And so I was, because we were looking at benefits and what other places and what other people in the state were doing, the salary, it was, I started the research, talked to the board president, and I believe that Hal he headed up that, sorry, you're right behind, it's not Hal. But Hal kind of headed up that committee, and I don't know more than that. I know that.
Well, it is important to have salaries that are commensurate with the job so that you can attract and keep good people. I mean, so that's a discussion piece. But when you look at, from our perspective, we're like, well, gee, but these other numbers, like the TAD funding is kind of low. How about throwing a little bit more in there? So from my perspective, we have to ask the question.
And I understand that. And if you look at, and I think it's floating around somewhere, if you look at the budget from last year, we are still, I think, about $30,000, $40,000 less than what we had budgeted for last year. So even with a salary increase, assuming that that's the final number, which I don't know, it is still less than we had planned for initially with 3 people. And I think, with the staff, and I do get asked if a staff of 2 is good, or do we need a third person? And it's a lot of work for this position, but I wouldn't hand it off to any anybody because it, this is the position, and I think it would be really tricky to task out little pieces of it. The other salary on there, I looked up the standard percentage of a raise and added that in. That doesn't mean the person's gonna get the full amount. I mean, we're gonna do a review, obviously, which is what you do. So, yeah, so I think we can manage with 2 people, and I think that's good. Eventually, we might wanna get a part-time, somebody to come in once a week and do invoices or something.
And just my final question is, did every board member have the opportunity to have input on this budget proposal?
Yes, it gets sent out before the board meeting. It got sent out on the Monday before we could review it, and then Thursday is when it got approved. We also have at our next board meeting the marketing plan, so those big numbers that you see there will be broken down, and I'll present the marketing plan to the board as well. But you do have the big numbers there, but it'll have more specific, like this is exactly what this is, and this is exactly what this is.
Well, thank you for answering my questions.
Very much.
Chairman?
Owen?
Chairman?
Yes.
Could I address, I apologize, I can't read your name, and I don't want to
Dean.
guess it as a pronunciation.
We'll just go with Dean.
Pardon? Dean.
Dean. Yes, sir.
Mr. Dean?
That works.
Just a couple things I'd like to address. I believe Riverton is starting to get more recognition and more representative, and the Riverton's representatives that they have, that is now on there, Cal and Julie are doing a marvelous job, and Julie's went out and talked with many other people and organizations and is working towards that. You did mention that you could maybe use some of that salary money into TAD money. Not really. Look at it like an enterprise fund, because 25% of the funds is put into TAD money, and then it's split up between the municipalities. Really, Shoshone and Hudson are getting gifts, because we're not generating money. I don't know why we were even, well, Shoshone used to have a motel or 2 there. Yeah, but you what I mean. It's, we're getting a set amount annually, and the money makers is Du Bois, Lander, and Riverton, and it's on a percentage.
Sure.
And we're, why I reached out to our accounting firm. I'm the background. I was on city council, mayor, so I'm used to dealing with public funds, and maybe a little more in detail than what I received. And so I reached out to the accountant, and they're very accommodating, and with Helen, and we met and talked and talked about some of the things I thought that I possibly should be seeing, and they're able to answer questions for me, and that all went well. And I believe we're working. Wind River Visitors Council will be working as a team to move forward on this, and a little better maybe plus budget planning and stuff like that. We're working forward on that. So that was really my only. Just want to respond to, but I believe we're working towards getting Riverton more recognition, and we're limited like on a enterprise fund, what we can do with the funding.
Sure, of course.
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Joel. Let's take a 5-minute break, and we'll be back at 8:25. We have 2 more people would like to talk to us at least.
Yes, sir.
One was first in line, so the other one's over.
I was just going to make a brief comment about, you had said you have some family members, council members who live over in Lander and who know about, they seem to know more about the WRVC than maybe over here. And I would say that's likely a result of the fact that we at the chamber do a very, we're very intentional about letting our community know. There's an old saying, if you're not telling your own story, someone's making one up about you. So that's what we're doing in Lander, you know, and one of the things that we do every year is we carve out a percentage of the money that we receive, and we actually solicit applications from the community. That way, they're aware that we want, you know, to give these grants out to individual organizations to run their events and help them with their promotion, and that way we, through that solicitation, we learn about the different events that are going on so that we can be a better promoter and advertiser of all the great things that are going on where we are. So that's just an observation.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
One. Kathy? Would you tell everybody who you are?
Hi, I'm Kathy Klein, and I'm a citizen. 6 years ago, I was, 2 years ago, I was part of the Wind River Visitors Council for a period of 6 years. And it was an incredible time. It had lots of difficulties, but I was glad to be a part of it, in particular representing Riverton. I can understand Julie's frustration. And I will say I've not been to a board meeting since I left it, so I'm speaking from the past. But the dynamic of that board is that there are some folks who exert quite a bit of influence. There are others who are more complacent. They're meeting for 2 hours every 6 months. 6 times a year. And so the actual depth that they can get into in those meetings is not huge. And so that's why a lot of times there's not as much discussion or digging into the numbers as you might like. Now, I was on the budget committee 2 years ago when we had it, and it was a painful session. COVID was just hitting. We didn't know what to expect from monies, and so we had a lot of round and round about it. But I will say the 5 or 6 people that were on that committee, we went through every line of the budget. We questioned every line of the budget, and that was the kind of due diligence that you expect with taxpayer monies. So I think we've heard some of the soft spots in this budget that you guys are asking to look at tonight. I will say there's one other thing that started just as I was leaving with the board that was a little disconcerting, and that was they've developed now a conduct policy that each board member must sign. And in my view, it's rather punitive. You are not free to just discuss items of Wind River Visitors Council discussion. And we're not talking about personnel issues, it's many issues. And so I don't know that actually would stand the test if anybody questioned that. So while I know that there was some concern, maybe Julie spoke out of turn, I don't think that she actually broached anything that was truly illegal from a transparency standpoint, maybe just from their policy standpoint. So that's not really what I wanted to start talking about tonight. What I really wanted to start talking about is I actually wanted to thank Helen, because Helen came into this position, I thought 2 years ago, but I guess just 1 year ago. Huh? And she came in when COVID was raging, and we didn't know where things were going. There was a big influx of CARES Act funding that helped out the council in a big way in that time. Don't know that it helped all of the tourism businesses, but it did help the council quite a bit. And then after that, we got this, all this pent-up demand was out and about and traveling. And you couldn't go to Europe, and you didn't want to go to Disneyland, and so they came right here, and that was really great for us. And so we had a kick-butt year. And I just think Helen did a great job in managing that. She has brought Riverton into the fold more than we were in the past. And I don't know if it's her or being an employee, but she is more engaged in Riverton than the previous person was. Although, I'm sorry, I want one little point on that, too. Owen mentioned that there was a difficult person at the Visitors Council. He was not talking about Paula. I just want to make that clear. So we had an interim person right there in the center. So anyway, I do think Helen's done a great job. I think this is more of a board issue and how they've handled this particular budget. I actually just saw in these numbers that salary issue, and I was kind of surprised by it too. I thought, dang, that's good money if you can get it. But it's probably not the right way to be handling taxpayers' money. So what we've heard in these various people talking tonight is that we have a budget before you that we want you to bless. But by the way, we've got a big salary increase in there, but we haven't actually approved it yet. We've got some changes in media spending, but that's not reflected in the budget. We've got some softness on TADs, that's not in the budget. And by the way, it would be great to see how those TADs are being figured these days. So I think what you've been giving as a budget is what I would call a blind budget. Its numbers have been put down on a page, and you're asked to bless them. Now, these meetings that we have, when they bring these budgets here to you, this is also the only time that the public actually gets a report on what's going on and gets to see, what's under the covers of the council. So if you're not seeing the numbers, none of us are seeing the numbers. And so I would suggest maybe this budget just isn't ready for prime time yet. Maybe with a little more work, those things can be worked out. It can be brought at a later date, and maybe for the sake of transparency, we can see more of what's under the covers, and then everyone can feel better about what they're blessing and the rest. I think it's particularly important this year because 6 months from now, we are headed into an election where the community will be asked to renew this tax, only the story is going to be more complicated. I think we have a new media environment that's much more competitive, and a harsh light could be shined on some of these issues. So I think it is incumbent on us to ask the council to come with just a little more detail and a little more transparency.
Thanks, Kathy. Bethany?
Mayor Guard and council, I will be very quick. As the Vice President of the Chamber of Commerce of Riverton, I would love to inform you that we have we haven't dispersed it, but we have allocated all of the money for the TAD grants, and they are going to community events within our community to support the balloon rally, to support the car show, all of them. We have, if any of you guys would like that information, the chamber will obviously supply it. We have recently seen the Landers budget and how, or not their budget, but how they use their TAD money, and we're hoping in the future that we can support that model. Our treasurer has spent countless hours going through because we were requested to do an audit, as should be, because these are very precious funds because they are created by tax dollars and our tourism. And I assure you that if you guys want any of this information, that we can bring it to you, but our chamber is doing a fantastic job.
Thank you.
Hi, Mayor, City Council, Kip Post. I just want to come up as I think everybody that's spoken so far is somewhat involved in the Wind River Visitors Council, and I'm coming more from just a taxpayer standpoint, and being involved in boards as well. And the initial thing on the budget with that big of an increase, and Mr. Parento spoke to it well, as a taxpayer, seeing a 40% salary increase freaks me out a little bit. When we had city council meetings in the city budget and people complaining about a 1% increase in rates, and we're talking about a 40% increase. That's hard for me as a taxpayer to swallow, regardless of whether the person deserves it or not. If that salary wasn't in the right range, slowly increase it. I've been a manager, employer for 15, 20 years. I would have laughed at anybody that asked me for a 40% raise. 10, 20%, sure. based on performance. Put some values in there, show me that you're performing, show me you're making the increases. Over time, I can get you there, but at 40% is tough to swallow as a taxpayer. And from a budgetary standpoint, these are public funds. I think it's extremely important, and Kathy spoke well to it, that it's very well defined, a line item budget. The boards that I'm on, both nonprofit boards and public fund boards, we spend 2 months approving a budget, not 4 days. You know, we do a preliminary budget. We have that 2 months prior to. So I'm working on a budget right now that we got in March. That's for approval in the end of this fiscal year, so June. We have a preliminary budget 2 months ahead of time. We spend a line item time going through that. Then we go to the next meeting the following month and get it approved. And it deserves the time and the respect of where those funds came from. I think one of the difficulties it seems like the Wind River Visitor Council has is they meet every other month. For the boards that I'm involved in, to try to meet every other month and not have working committees that are meeting at least every month, that's almost impossible to get the job done, especially with $1 million budget. Pretty much it. That's my input. Thanks.
Thanks, Kip. Anybody else? So, Helen, you might take the podium because I got some direct questions, and it goes back to the FTAG conversation that we had Thursday, right? And so, accounting-wise, I see that this year you have expenditures of 687 with a income overage of $57,500.
That was that's the current fiscal year.
This is 22 is what at the top of my.
Yep, and so that was what I presented to you last year when I was here.
And so I guess my question is, I don't see the 57,000 reappearing on this budget.
That's correct. And actually what happened was because we received care. So what you're holding wasn't, I only brought one page and it was for my notebook here. But that was the budget that was approved last year here. And since then, because we got the CARES money, the board approved a revised budget. And because we had so much income, we didn't have a cash carryover.
And so I can somewhat understand that, but from your own numbers, your own figures, there should be a carryover of $57,000.
That was pulled from reserves. So what happened last year was we, because of COVID, we thought we were going to have a really bad year. Mm-hmm. And so we put that on the budget to balance out the budget. Turned out we didn't need that. So
So do you have some funds?
Well, we have, the way that the bank account looks right now is, it's just building and building, and I'm hoping we get to the 729 by the end of this fiscal year, so we can follow the model that's on the sheet here.
So are you telling me that you're going to fall short of that model, or is it?
I think, we just don't know quite yet, because we still have 3 more months, but we're going to be really close to that. And that will be the budget. What we've done in the past is just guessed how much we're going to bring in. And I could tell you in 5 months exactly where we fell at the end of this fiscal year.
But this is a year-old budget that I'm looking at. Last year, did you have a surplus?
We did.
Was it 57,000?
No, I think it was more than that. But we pulled it so that was what was in reserves, was more than the 57, but to balance the budget, we pulled 57.
So how much do you have in reserve?
Right now, I am not sure. I haven't gotten a statement from our accountant since February, but it was around 600,000 at that point.
So this goes to my statement at FTAG, that we collect these dollars in a fiscal year. And so if we were lucky enough to get close to $1 million and we budget on a $729,000, then we stick almost $275 back in your secret fund.
Well, and that would be used for next fiscal year because that would fall under this blank line right here.
It wasn't used last year and brought forward. These are taxpayer dollars, and they should all be expended.
So in 2017, the Wind River Visitors Council adopted a reserve policy. And I'm sure there was I wasn't part of the Wind River Visitors Council at that time, but I'm sure there was a process behind that. After the FCAG meeting, I did talk to our attorney as well as the state to make sure that we were allowed to do this. And we are. And it's Park County was the model for it, but it did make me nervous when I heard that and that there was concern about that. So I did check in. And we do have a reserve policy, and I'm sure there was a big process that went into play.
So why
creating
isn't
that.
your reserve on anything that I'm looking at?
Well, this is the annual report. We have a board binder which has all of the information for the board members, which includes our bylaws, the reserve policy, all kinds of stuff. It's a big packet, and it's in there. And so the council doesn't have it, but your two representatives do.
Okay, and so with our half cent, we're trying to get it all allocated so that we don't have a carryover. That's what we feel is the best. Now, maybe we're wrong about that and the idea to have a carryover, but if you have $600,000 in your carryover and we're going to put another $300,000 in your carryover, I love these. It never rains in Wyoming. It might be raining out there right now, but it never rains in Wyoming, okay? And so we have shelved $900,000. That makes it easy to do the books, but we don't do that in our, Mia's here, and I think she would really love that opportunity. We do hold a reserve of 18%, but we'll put it right back in the next year. And we see that reserve.
Yep.
And so, and I know everybody thinks, well, why are you such a stick in the mud? But they want my signature on this. So my signature goes on stuff I believe in. And if I see a $600,000 to $900,000 slush fund of taxpayer dollars, it doesn't make me comfortable.
And I understand that. I think the way that I'm looking at it is that's the money for next year, and that gives the opportunity for people to plan ahead, and they'll know exactly what the TAD money is, as well as the full year's revenue by.
But my statement,
August.
Helen, is you didn't spend any of the $6,000 that you have in reserves today.
We did spend, last year's budget, I didn't go over it. I stuck to the budget, which is why we ended up with more money, because we had an amazing tax year.
So just for simplicity, we get 25% in TAD funds, but you're not applying that to the $600,000 overage, or now the $300,000 overage that we're going to create this year.
The full amount is accounted for. So the way we can look at this is just eliminate this last line, because that's for next fiscal year. And so you can look at the 729,499.82, which is the full lodging tax that was brought in for that year, and that is what we're budgeting on the 2022 to 2023. Of that, 25% is $182,375. And the breakdown is Du Bois was 34.7% of that, Lander was 29.8% of that, and Riverton was 35.5% of that. So if you look at those numbers, you've got 63,284 for Du Bois, 54,348 for Lander, and 64,743 for Riverton. And then once these numbers are filled in on here, we can tell you what the following year's TAD money will be down to the dollar.
Mike?
So what you're saying is that on July 1, which is the first day of the fiscal year, you will have 100% of your budget sitting in your bank account.
That is the plan. And
So us as the city of Riverton cannot do that. Okay, we have to work on the money we get every month to do what we're going to do every month. So I understand. I mean, it'd be great. I would love to be able to put my paycheck in the bank and not have to touch it for 12 months. But I don't think anybody else in the real world can do that. Okay, so I guess to me, 100% reserves, which is what you're saying, that's a little excessive.
Don't go anywhere, but I can shed some light on the reserve. About 4 years ago, the board was concerned because all of the bills were being paid by Paula McCormick out of her monies, and we felt like we needed to have money so that it was a kind of a quarter at a time. So we needed to have a quarter's worth of money, so if all the world blew up, we could cover what Paula was going to be out. And that was why the reserve was established. So now that we don't have Paula in that situation anymore, the board may want to revisit why they have the reserve.
So I think you need to hone down just a little bit and let us know, if you want my signature on your budget, which I think you need to do, I need to see better numbers. And I don't, and I don't see that, your start off this year, you just went down and you keep taking me to that, but you went down to 2020 and 2021, and the money you collected, that's now gonna be your budget. But you have more money than that.
I don't think we do. I don't think we have more money than that.
Well, is there a $600,000 retainage someplace that I don't know about?
No, our bank account in February was 600 something thousand, but we're spending money as well as bringing money in. So it's not just, it's coming in, it's going out.
So when you come over to your budget, that's where I should see that what you had last year is moving into this year. That's how we do it. And so those figures should be identical. And then I know that all the money's being used and it's into play. And then the other problem is, just like I mentioned at the FTAG, and I don't know that it's legal or illegal. My problem with it is it's $300,000 that Du Bois could use their TAD share of that $300,000. Riverton could use their share of that $300,000. Shoshone gets set a rate, but that's what we're trying to point out, is that your budget doesn't reflect your overage.
Okay, and we do have less than, I think we're just slightly less. I don't have an actual number here. I only have a number from February. Our statements are a couple of months behind, but we are, in late February, we were around 600,000. My hope was to get to 729,499.82 by the end of this fiscal year.
Well, excuse me for pointing out the obvious. These aren't hopes. These are actually dollars that were sent to you,
That is true.
correct?
That is true, yes.
Yeah, and you should, and that's what's called accounting.
Yes.
You should say, I did get every one of these 12 checks, and these were the right amount, and this is how much money we brought in 2020-21.
And that's correct. Yeah, and we did bring that in. And that was also distributed in TAD funds in 2021.
And then if we were lucky enough to not spend it all, we should see the movement of 57,000, for lack of other numbers. That's what I see here, into the next fiscal year.
Yes.
And we would start with that and then put the budget figures together, and somehow, somewhere, that $57,000 has to get the retainages out of it for the communities. The 25% has to come out of there someplace. Eventually, either last year, this year, or the next year.
Yes.
Your overage, whatever that overage is, has to come forward. And then, so we move $300,000 forward. That's a great, I don't disagree, that's a great plan. If Park County came up with it, that's a great plan, if you can move that. But I'm a real believer that it's taxpayer dollars taken by force, and they need to be spent, not collected and not sat on. And so I would like to see where the overages are, what we carried forward, and what we estimate to carry forward.
Okay.
Okay? And I don't have a problem. I think you've been a wonderful director. I don't have problem one with what you're doing. I think you're put in a tough situation because we're moving from one set of where we're spending our money to another set of where we should spend our money. You do have an executive board that only has 4 members on it. Am I correct with that?
We have the president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer on the executive team, and then we have a board of 10 people.
And you have a board of 10 people, which is got to not be correct because you can get a locked vote with 10 people. It should be 9, it should be 11.
The quorum states that the bylaws state that 5 is a quorum.
5 is the majority.
Yep.
And so these are just bookkeeping things to me. They're not somebody's absconded with any monies. I just don't think that the taxes were collected and we told the taxpayers, we're spending this for you. And we collected just short of $1 million and we spent that all in that year. That's how I would like to see it done. And so I do need to sign and the city council will vote. And so let's move to that, unless there's other questions. Tony, you got any input?
Not at this time, Your Honor. It's been a good discussion.
Mia, you got any accounting expertise here?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Okay. I saw you flinch a couple times.
No, I'm going to be up soon. I feel like I'm going to be in the hot
Okay.
seat.
So let's do this. Let's come back to the agenda that we're working on. I do appreciate all the time that you put into this. This isn't, and this isn't a Riverton Lander thing. I've heard that so many times that I'm ill over it.
You too, huh?
I don't think that that's what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is taxpayer dollars, and we want them spent appropriately. Because next time when I walk out on the stage and say, hey, I think the lodging tax needs to pass, I don't want somebody saying, well, they got $600,000 in reserve, right?
I think, and I do see that, and I think once we switch to this model, I think the numbers are going to be very clear, but it's the transition.
And I see the way you're switching to the model only makes it worse. And Joel's back there doing this. And so what it does is it keeps increasing your savings account and it's a safe way to do business. Mr. Bailey would love that. Business isn't safe. And what we're doing, what happens when the taxpayer says, I'm not voting for that, and they don't vote for the 2%, and now we've carried over all these funds, and then we got egg on our faces.
Well, I think, and I'm kind of looking at it that if the lodging tax vote doesn't go through, we still get 2%, and having reserves will help carry us through until we can get the lodging tax back on the ballot. The money will not increase every year because we'll be spending the entire amount from the previous year.
But see, Helen, the point is, if it doesn't pass, the taxpayer wants to see that it is defunded, right? That's why they didn't vote for it. And so to say, oh, by the way, we have reserves here that we'll have to eventually spend, is not what they want to hear. And it will pass, and that's why I want to be really clear about this, so I can go in every room and say, there isn't any overage, they've got all the money accounted for, and it's at work in the calendar year that it was received. And so I know that makes it harder to do your accounting, but I don't see overage from last year, and I'm able to understand that there is going to be overage carried into next year. And so I would like to see where those are at. And so we'll go back to the agenda. We're at a motion. Thanks, Helen. I appreciate all the work you put in. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the fiscal year 2022-2023 Wind River Visitors Council budget as presented. Do I have a motion? So since I don't have a motion, what do you want to do?
Your Honor, we ought to table it.
Okay. Do you want to make that motion?
Your Honor, I would like to make a motion to table the Wind River budget until we can get some firm figures on their checking and just what is in reserves and et cetera. Thank you.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Tony, Kristen, if we table it, we have to bring it back up in the next regular council meeting. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor, or you could say for, set a date for a future council meeting. The next one would probably be appropriate.
Helen, does 2 weeks give you time to get those answers for us? Right. So if 2 weeks, we could set a different date and give you more time. But you need this budget, just like we need our budget, right? Okay. So we have a motion to table from Councilman Larson, and we have a second on that. So, is there any further discussion on that?
Your Honor?
Yes.
If we could see the reserve policy, I think that would be beneficial as well.
Okay. That's what I'm wondering, why we don't, if it's there, I would like to see it. If the money isn't there, then I'm comfortable that it isn't there. I don't think there's any embezzlement gone on. I just want to see where the money, at my location, where I work, we have a CPA, and there isn't a $20,000 disjoint from one year to the next. And we certainly don't carry over 300,000 unless we've made it. And so, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Nay. Motion fail. Well, this motion passes. Thank you. So if you can do that for us, Tony, when is the next council meeting?
Next council meeting is on the 17th, Your Honor.
So we would look forward to seeing you on the 17th. And we'll take any information prior to that. If we're wrong, we'll be more than glad to, I've been wrong many times. I've been married for 46 years. I almost got it wrong. I'll be more than glad to admit to it. So we'll take this up again on the 17th of May. Okay? Thank you. Consideration of ordinance number 22-004, third and final reading to allowed use for CH zoning. Would the city clerk please read ordinance number 22-004 by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Proposed ordinance number 22-004 on third and final reading. An ordinance amending Title 17 zoning, Chapter 17.64, Commercial District CH, Section 17.64.040, Use Regulations of the Riverton Municipal Code, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to adopt ordinance number 22-004 on third and final reading.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Paranto has a motion. Councilman Bailey has the second. Kristen, would the city clerk please conduct roll call vote?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilman Lindsay Cox.
Aye.
Councilman Mike Bailey.
Aye.
Councilman Dean Pronto.
Yes.
Councilman Kyle Larson.
Yes.
Councilwoman Christy Salisbury.
Aye.
Mayor Richard Gard.
Aye. Motion passes. Bid award for,
Your Honor. We have a lady in the audience that
Okay.
missed the public comment period and
thank you.
short of making her wait all night through some of this stuff,
Could
I
you,
would suggest we bring her forward.
could you come forward to the podium and give us your name? And we apologize for, we must have went too fast in public hearing, huh?
Good evening, Mayor Gard and all the city council. I thank you for making time to be able to have me speak?
Nicole, can you tell them your name?
Oh, I apologize. My name's Nicole Wagon. Can you hear me? Okay.
Pull that
again-
mic, pull that mic right over to you. It'll move, so you're
All right.
comfortable. Thank you.
sir. Yes, my name is Nicole Wagon. I'm here on behalf of the M.I.P Task Force of the state of Wyoming. Working with the governor's office, Kara Chambers, just to bring forth information. The governor's going to be signing the proclamation May 5th again for M.I.P awareness. Also, we are currently working on a march, a walk, so to speak, to bring awareness from, again, this will be our 3rd annual. Due to the pandemic, we didn't count it as the 4th, seeing that we didn't do that last year. So with that being said, we had a meeting of who was all going to come together to be able to help assist this M.I.P awareness. And again, we will be walking from 789 Truck Stop to the Riverton City Park. That hasn't changed. And I really like that idea with building the bridge from my Wind River Indian Reservation. I am a full-blooded Northern Arapaho member of the Northern Arapaho tribe. With that being said, my heart's in this. I think you guys are fully aware how this has touched my life. Jocelyn Watt is my daughter, who was murdered here in Fremont County. And at this moment, I'm wearing my daughter's sweatshirt. She was found on the Wind River Indian Reservation. So it's really hard with the jurisdiction issues. My heart goes out to many people that this has touched. And again, my phone doesn't quit. I get a lot of calls and to help many others of finding their loved ones and making a positive difference with this epidemic that's occurring across Indian country. With that being said, I am a part of the M.I.P family. I was personally asked to go up to the state of Washington to be a part of their walk, but I respectfully declined because I'm obligated to take care of matters here in my own backyard. So with that being said, we all interconnect with one another, and with the U.S. Department Secretary Deb Haaland is having a virtual event 2:30, 3:30 on May 5th, this Thursday, and to get all the information that we can out there for all indigenous peoples. Excuse me. With that being said, as we were having our meeting, Carla Borders was a part of that meeting, and she highly called me, encouraged me to approach you all of recognizing M.I.P. So I'm here actually for information, also your permission for future, because I see this event growing, getting bigger and better. And just one day I was driving into Riverton and was looking at the flags, the U.S. flags that you guys have all throughout the city. And then it came to my thoughts of FFA, is there any way, and I don't know how to go about this, or if we have to go through trying to obtain funding of having M.I.P flags to recognize, to bring light forward to my people. And I'm aware that's Cinco de Mayo as well that day. But I mean, across the nation, May 5th has also been declared as M.I.P awareness. So that's what I'm here for, and permission. I know it's short time, there's no way we're gonna have flags for this walk. So with that being said, I think it was Fremont County Alliance. I don't know if they want to put red ribbons up or something red material on the, excuse me, the flags of where they sit to bring awareness for that color meaning, M.I.P. With that being said, we have many people working in different areas, and I believe that it was approved for us to have our walk Saturday. We're going to have our walk Saturday. I don't want to conflict with everybody's planned events. Our both tribes, the Northern Arapaho tribe and the Eastern Shoshone tribe, are having a walk within Wind River Indian Reservation that morning. And I believe they're collaborating with CWC students. So they're going to have a walk that morning. I also, keep in touch with Carla Borders and fully aware of my surroundings. And I believe there's an international prayer that's going on with the city park that afternoon.
Yeah, from 1 to 2.
Yes, sir.
And that's been reserved
Yes.
at that point.
And again, I don't mind. I told the people involved, it's not set in stone that we have to have this walk on May 5th. I believe the more the merrier. So with that being said, I'm very patient. So we decided to come together and have it on Saturday. And it's really hard with families working, trying to get home, feed their, loved ones, and that kind of everyday doings.
Do you have a time on Saturday?
We have agreed from 10 to 2.
10 to 2?
Yes, sir.
And so you're going to start at the bridge?
Yes, we're all going to meet up at 789
Bingo.
the parking lot.
The parking lot there, and then come across the bridge
Yes, sir.
and all the way to City Park.
Yes.
Your Honor, I apologize. We also have 2 police officers that I asked today to have them escort the people, so they will have plenty of security as well.
Are we in lane or are we on the sidewalk?
Your Honor, the request, so the application that went through is a YDOT application. We got that yesterday, and we, thanks to the chief and Kyle and everybody, we got it turned around and submitted for them today. The request is for the march to occupy the, let me get my directions right, east lane of the northbound lane, east side of the northbound lane, right up against the sidewalk. So the police department will escort on the front and rear of that for safety as it moves along. And it has been done the same in the past. We do not issue that, so YDOT has it. We do have a response from YDOT that denotes they have received it and they're working on processing it, and we don't expect there to be a problem. So but they did want to have access to that lane because they will have, I was working with Laterra LeBeau.
Yes, sir.
And they're going to have some banners and the like. So being on the sidewalk where nothing is required, you can go up and down the sidewalk with any march. Having that extra space gives them a little more access to have those items. But we would expect that it would be issued based on the correspondence we've had today.
So early today, Tony hadn't got that permission yet. And I see the chief nodding, and Tony just said that, I think we've got that through for you. If you're keeping a packet of how to help us, which maybe that isn't a problem, but how long does do those take?
YDOT's been really good about helping us out in a pinch, just like they're going to do now. But YDOT, I believe, requires either 30 or 60 days for those permits. That's a little far out. But
So if you would, and we've, when we were planning, that isn't our highway, and we can't give you permission to it, but it sounds like we got it.
Yes, sir.
And we're grateful for it. Now, the ribbons on on the polls, I think is a really great idea. And we could take a vote here. I don't know if it's appropriate. But we could take a vote to see if we could get you a majority to put those, whatever you had. It would be nice if you had flags in the future. Maybe you'll have a flag, and ribbons would be wonderful now. And if they were every other one, anything we could get would be an improvement, right?
Yes, sir.
And so we would hold that vote here in the next few minutes, but I don't mean to cut you off. You go ahead and tell us what else you know.
I'd like to thank you, Mr. Tolstead and Chief Murray. Again, I know it's Miss Latera LeBeau that's been in contact with you. There's been many women that are involved with this planning. And of course, it came to short time, and somehow I got appointed with the M.I.P task force. So, which of course I'll take it, because it's dear to my heart. And my other question would be, how long would we be able to leave the red up? With that being said, the kickoff across Indian country was May 1st. We have so many events going on across, I don't think you guys are aware, but virtually, with NIWRC. There's so many people that are involved with this movement. That's come, I just kind of state that it's M.I.P month, but the kickoff was May 1st.
So let's get staff.
So I was inquiring if we're able to obtain them and get them up on May 5th and have them up for May 7th, because with the walk being occurring then, I don't know how this works, but what time would they take them down the very next day, or?
We've had Ducks Unlimited up, we've had FFA up, we've had a number of, and do we leave them up for 30 days? Do we leave them up for how long?
Your Honor, I don't remember exactly, but I don't think 30 days is till the end of the month is a problem. If they're trying to hang like ribbons.
Yes,
I don't
the ladies.
Problem, Your Honor, if that's what council would like to do.
So could we take that vote right now? Is that appropriate? I need a.
Yeah, it's a consensus vote. If everybody's good with it, we'll just.
Do I need a motion in a second?
No.
So, everybody in favor? I think you got 6 votes.
How can you be against it?
Well, I've seen you vote crazy.
Well, yeah, but that was when I was drunk.
Oh, gosh.
And so I think we're all in favor of helping in every way we can.
You're gonna get a call from HR.
So, if you can get bows, if you can get flags, we can probably give you a number, and we do own those up Federal and up Main Street. So, it is really pretty with all the flags up, and maybe we could talk to the veterans. They're the ones that own those flags.
Okay.
And maybe they would be interested in putting them up for the 7th when you're having your walk, and maybe you don't want the American flag. I don't want to speak for you, but
Yes, sir.
if you want to get something on those poles, you have our permission.
Thank you.
And you can leave it up for 30 days. Is that okay with everybody here?
Yeah. Yep.
So, okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Really having a hard time. And thank you, Mr. Bailey. It's really hard.
No kidding.
And I appreciate all you guys' help and your support. Like, you've been there for my family. My daughter Jocelyn went to school with his daughter. And Chief Murray, he was the one that was with me that day. So, thank you guys all.
We have the best chief in the state, And
Yes,
so
sir.
we've proven that over and over. So we do appreciate you coming and asking, and we need to be supportive, and anything that you need, give us a call. We'll do our very best. We would like, if you can, next year. Last year, we had this same push in a couple of days, that if you would give us time,
Yes.
as soon as you know, our guys can get that in front of the state, and we won't have to call him so many favors. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor.
Thank you.
Nicole, I just want to say you are an amazing mother, and I know the work you've put in with all your girls.
Yes.
And you've done more than anybody for all of them. And so
They're beautiful.
continue the fight. But you've done an amazing job as a mom. I know. I've seen you do it.
I appreciate that. People ask me what keeps me going, and it's really hard. Meaning, I see it when my elders share with me, don't let the tears blind you. What's in front of you? And I can't forget about my daughters that are alive now. And I applaud RPD. They helped me with my grandchildren that Jade has left with me. They keep me up and going. They're beautiful kids. So when I do those walks, I really feel like I'm walking a trail of tears. But I know that my children live within my heart. And they're in a better place. But I don't want anybody to ever feel my pain the way they were taken from me. So, that being said, thank you.
Thank you. Anything you need, give us a call, okay? So we're now down to item 11, which is a bid award for the Riverton Police Department vehicles. Police Chief's report, please.
Your Honor, thank you. I'll make this very quick. Your Honor, Counsel, I apologize. This is a little bit earlier than usual. Usually we do this in the fall, but because of everything going around the nation right now, they're asking us to do it now because they're only going to allow us to order cars for a 2-week period, which is coming up in a couple weeks. So that's why we're presenting this tonight. So for two police vehicles, what we need is $86,154. That's for two vehicles. That's all I have, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the purchase of two 2023 Chevy Tahoe police package vehicles from Fremont County, or from Fremont Chevrolet, GMC, and Buick in the amount of $86,154.
So moved.
Second.
Councilwoman Cox has the motion, and Councilman Bailey has the second. Any discussion?
Mayor, may I add a couple points?
Please.
Usually, these will be within you'll see these within the upcoming budget. So they are not being taken from this year's budget, and there will be also additional upfitting costs, which you see as part of the memo that moves that number all the way up to a little over $125,000. That upfitting cost also includes radios, correct, Chief?
Yes.
So in the past, one of the reasons you see that number climb more than other upfitting is because we didn't have to replace radios. Those radios are obscene in terms of how much they cost when you start having to have them for those vehicles, but of course we need them. So that's why that cost is escalated. So in the future budget, you will see a larger number than the $86,000 if you approve that tonight, because you'll have upfitting costs as well. So we wanted you to be aware of that, so when those numbers don't line up to 86 and it's the 125, you know where we're coming from.
The uplift we'll appropriate that when we get the vehicles.
Yes, Your Honor. So that purchase doesn't need to be made in advance. The authorization doesn't need to be provided now. Your authorization for that will come as part of the budget process.
So how long does it take to get these? Any idea?
Your Honor, the reason that they're doing this right now is because there's such a shortage of vehicles. So that's why we're not waiting till the fall. Brian Eggleston is actually going to do this in the next couple weeks. And we don't expect to get them until sometime next year. We have no idea when. He just said that probably this time next year is when we'll get them.
Fabulous. I appreciate that. Any other discussion?
Crazy.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Consideration of the 56 permit application, Urban Deer Reduction Program, City Administrator's Report.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mayor, Council, this is the third application process now for the 56 permit. In 2020, the city had, I'm making sure I get these numbers right, and somebody will chastise me tomorrow. We had 11 taken deer with 9 donated. Keeping in mind we have to do CWD testing on those, and so the first year we had a couple that we lost. This last year there were 11 taken but 10 donated. The nice thing about this last year is we also had the processing fee donated. Shannon Sanderson worked very well with Habitat for Humanity, donated 10, and the program through the Field to Table program that's championed by First Lady Gordon helped do that. We expect to get those same monies again this year if council authorizes the application. The current application will largely be the same. We'll put it right about 50 deer. We went higher in the first year, but we got right in at 50, and we find getting to 50 to be relatively challenging. So we're not proposing any modifications to that. We continuously ask for the dates to be widened, and they don't get widened, but we use the time that we're allotted. Keeping in mind, all of the animals that do have to be taken have to have a CWD test prior to any donation, and we do run a donation program, and that's the intent, is to help get some of these resources out into the community to those who need them. There's also a testing process where we have to remove the front teeth for the game and fish on the deer and send those in. All of that process is all managed by our animal control officer, Shannon Sanderson. She does a great job for us. She also manages working with the landowners, finding the locations, coordinating that. Many thanks to her. She's done a great job helping get this program moving and keeping it running well. We do expect to update the waivers and rules internally. We do that every year, and we have those signed off on. Those are pretty standard. We've used pretty much the same ones for the last 2 years. I don't expect giant changes, but if there were to be any minor ones, we would update those internally. We would probably report that to you in the weekly report or the like, but those would be small verbiage items. I don't expect any massive modifications. We have, in order to, the 56 permit, not to get too far into it because I know it's getting late, is allows for a lot of different variables to be removed. So it allows for baiting as long as you coordinate, allows for spotlighting, different caliber. I mean, there's a whole lot of things that are suspended compared to the general rules of hunting. We coordinate with Game and Fish on those, and we would intend to do that a little bit more this year, specifically with baiting in conjunction and approval with Game and Fish, simply because it will allow us to remove some of the variables of some of the areas. It's hard to shoot in certain areas and to truly do it safely, and we're trying to focus on that. We're trying to make sure that we're good about that. So we do, by the way, in the bridge to that is that we do need people who have safe locations. We could really use their help, their access. Our staff work really hard to do a safe and effective harvesting, and we would like any help that we could get. I did already talk about processing and storage, which is taken care of. That Shannon handles it, but it is paid for. So we're not expecting any budget impact this year. That's kind of a nice thing to say, is we can implement a program. We continue to seek appropriate land for use. Staff does recommend that council direct staff to apply for the 56 permit for 2022, and we would be happy to answer any questions for you.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to direct staff to prepare and to apply for the 56 permit as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Bailey has the motion. Councilman Peranto has the second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Quarterly fiscal report, this is what we've been waiting all night for. Finance Director's report, please.
I think it would be fair to say we've all heard that B word a lot tonight. Budget.
Budget.
So while I'm getting set up here, just wanted to go over a little bit of information about the city's budget planning period. We started our budget planning on February 16th of this year when we advertised for the quarterly contracts for services. Then we had the contracts work session on April 12th. Since then, and between then and now, the time that we adopt our budget, we will have 6 budget meetings total. We did advertise for a quorum, a potential quorum for those meetings, and so the public was notified of those budget meetings, and they're always welcome to join or ask any questions about our budget planning process. We will have our budget work session on May 24th and our public hearing for adoption on June 14th. So it's just a little bit of public information. For those of you that have been sitting in the audience, I've had the opportunity to sit in those chairs for a very extended period of time. You're going to appreciate a nice stretch and massage when you get out of here tonight. Okay.
Would you want to call a recess?
No, I'm okay.
In the audience, you're more than welcome to get up and move, and we won't even throw rocks at you.
And just so you know, we didn't budget for new chairs for the council chambers next year. Our money's a little tight, so sorry.
Oh, well.
So I'm just going to start off with the funny. Why did the businessman throw all his money in the river? Because he wanted to see his cash flow. Wah-wah.
I think we've seen that.
I'm a finance person, I'm not a comedian.
You get that joke from Tisha.
Okay, just for the benefit of those that are listening in the audience or from home, this is the third quarter fiscal year budget report. Our total budget was $22,636,000. Our general fund, here we go. So our general fund at the close of the quarter, our revenues exceeded our expenditures by $590,220. We think that sounds like a lot of money, but if we're actually looking at our line items in the budget, we've got capital items that we have budgeted for about $1.5 million, and we still have $1,079,000 to spend. So what that's essentially going to do if we spend all that money is put us in the hole. You were talking earlier about our reserves and our cash carryover. We budgeted that we were going to carry over $492,000 out of our reserves to help cover our capital and our operations for this year. So right now we're looking pretty good at the 590, but again, as the year progresses, we'll move forward a little bit more with that. Moving on to the next fund, our airport fund. The airport fund closed the third quarter with revenues exceeding our expenditures by $421,000 and some change. Comparatively, this fund reflected a balance of $249,163 for the same period last year. 100% of the airport's operations budget is funded through our CARES Act grant. This grant will be fully drawn early next fiscal year. I run about a little over $150,000 per request for reimbursement, and I've got about $250,000 left to reimburse, so we're going to be using the rest of that money up pretty quickly. The city staff did budget a transfer of $75,000 also from our cash to help support airport capital as well. The next fund is the water fund. The third quarter fiscal year budget closed with a deficit balance of $87,897 in the water fund. Last year, the fund position for this same period was negative $736,355. We were deep in the throes of completion of our Riverton water supply project, and we paid for that through our cash flow and cash reserves. While the negative budget has improved, we do have a lot of deferred projects to complete the water fund, and next year's budget projections actually reflect a further delay in completing those projects because we are seeing a little bit of a downturn in our water fund.
How much is a little?
Well, right now we're $800 and $87,897, and we budgeted that we were going to transfer $772,000 from our cash. So if we fully complete all of our projects, we're going to be draining our cash reserves, so to speak, for capital by $772,000. And we did budget for that. Okay, for the wastewater fund, our revenues exceeded our expenditures by $68,960. Last year, the third quarter closing balance was $363,668. I'm sure as you're watching, as we're paying bills through this year, our capital budget contains over $600,000 in expenses for upgrades to our aging wastewater treatment plant. So this is really important to talk about when our customers and our citizenry, they get a little excited over a 3%, water and sewer rate increase. But we've got a lot of water lines that need to be replaced that are aging. Our sewer treatment plant is very old and going through significant upgrades, and we do have to raise the capital in order to pay for that. So that's where your money is going. The sanitation fund, the city budgeted for a purchase of a sanitation truck and a front-end loader this year. The loader arrived in December and the sanitation truck arrived in February. The fund closed with a deficit balance of $245,000, $245,605. Again, we budgeted out of our cash reserves to help pay for that. Last year's quarter three closed at $539,377. We purchase sanitation trucks, and we try to keep up our fleet so that they're at a healthy level, and sanitation trucks cost $300,000 apiece. So it doesn't take long to see a swing in our finances when we purchase trucks.
What did the loader cost?
Oh, I don't have that number. I apologize. I would have to guess that it would be close to 200 or 229,000. I think it was 187 though, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Okay. If you would like, I'm happy to get that number and bring it forward to next week's next meeting.
We're all right.
Okay, and then the last fund that we have here is the Air Service Fund. The Air Service Fund has been primarily funded by the City of Riverton, the City of Lander, and other local entities. With the passing of the 0.5% economic development tax, Air Service is primarily funded through this means. At the close of the third quarter, the Air Service Fund budget reflects a deficit balance of negative $10,593. However, at the close of the quarter, I still have $186,000 in the 0.5% fund for economic development to transfer over to help support the Air Service. So there is money there, and we're still continuing to receive collections every month. So I will be transferring that as the end of the year approaches. And with that, I would answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions? Great job. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
That's real bookkeeping.
Except for I didn't know the exact cost of the loader. I'm going to get it.
There's always a trick question in there. Thank you for what you do. We're now down to item 14, which is the council committee reports and council members roundtable. Lindsay, could you start us off?
I can. I was able to attend the Boys and Girls Club breakfast with a lot of you, and that was really a lot of fun. I'll let Mike give more detail on what was raised that day, but I thought it was a great event, and I was happy to be there to support the Gilpatricks and to meet Rudy. He was pretty entertaining, and my boys were really excited to see him. And I do think that him saying that Kobe Bryant used him as inspiration made them all kind of perk up. So there's a cleanup day set for Saturday, June 25th at the Riverwalk. In one of our emails, I saw that CWC is now hosting Wyoming Health Fairs, which is good to know that they're back up and running because I had that conversation today. So they'll be Friday at CWC from 7 to 10 a.m. And then also...
Can you give us a cleanup day?
Oh, the cleanup day is Saturday, June 25th on the Riverwalk.
June 26th.
25th.
Do you have a time?
They didn't have a time, that the last one started at 9 o'clock, so I'm guessing it'll probably be around the same.
Okay.
I was also able to hear Governor Gordon speak, and I was happy to hear that the First Lady said that our Honor Farm started a garden, and they are giving back the food, and they donated over 3,000 pounds of product or produce distributed across the state. And I thought that was really incredible, and I had no idea that was happening. So
How many pounds?
3,000 pounds of donated produce.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one cabbage, huh?
Yeah.
One big.
One big cabbage.
It says to serve as a staple in the food pantries where it is needed the most. A Wyoming solution to hunger. So just another way our community is giving back. I thought that was interesting. And that's all I have.
Mike?
Again, like Lindsay said, the Boys and Girls Club breakfast was last week, and it turned out amazing. We served somewhere around 375 people breakfast, and of course, many members of the city council came and helped serve, and it was an amazing event. Like Lindsay said, Rudy was very entertaining and inspirational, and we raised somewhere a little over $130,000 for the Boys and Girls Club. So
That's great.
turning out very nice. They have about just a little under 150 kids registered, and they get over 40-something per day that are there. So, I mean, I think it's really being utilized. I think it's a great service. You know, again, we've got a lot of kids in the community that are sort of latchkey kids where after school, you know, mom and dad work till later, and so they end up being home by themselves. And again, the Boys and Girls Club, I think, gives them a good, productive place to go work on activities and learn good life skills. They have what they call a cowboy ethics, which we all sort of know what is, but it's I think it's a wonderful program, and they're doing a great job. And again, I think the Rotary had the opening of the dog park down on the Riverwalk, and it was well attended, and we got snowed and rained on and all kinds of stuff, but it was a great day. We had lots of people show up and lots of dogs, and none of them ate each other or anything. There was a couple of little, you know, riled up King of the Hill battles going on, but other than that, it was turned out to be a really nice event. It's really a nice spot down there. If anybody hasn't done it, you ought to take a walk on the Riverwalk. You can park down there by the Sale Barn Fairgrounds and walk all the way up to the end of the, you know, River Lane, or there's a place on River Lane you can park and go the other direction, or you can, and I forget the name of the street that comes down, but by the old, on the west side of the old Style Homes building, there's a little bit of parking there, so you can sort of go in the middle, and that's about where the dog park is. So it's a nice little place to go burn some calories off. So thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Dean?
Your Honor, we are scheduled for the Vermont County School District 25 Rec Board on the 9th, next Monday. This last week, I was able to attend the governor's reception with a few other council members, and that was really well attended. It was just kind of fun to see a lot of the people back out again. You know, we've been so confined in a lot of these activities with COVID, so seeing some of the people from our community and from the state kind of out in public again was kind of a nice change, and that was well attended as well. Other than that, I don't have anything.
Okay. Kyle?
I only have two things. The airport is live and well, and it's fun to see the numbers grow. Secondly, the solid waste storage in Lander appears that it will be beyond 2027 or 28 because they're not filling it up as fast as they had anticipated. And so they measure that. So that gives them the number of days, and that's why when you look at it, we're paying more per ton because it's a fixed cost on whether you 2 pounds or 400 pounds. So, and that is well funded, so we're not worried about that. So if you're looking for money, maybe they'll loan us some. Just kidding. That's all I have, Your Honor.
I've been to that meeting. I doubt that. Christie?
There's a chamber meeting to be scheduled this Thursday. However, I will be out of town, so I will not be able to make that. But also, I don't know if people appreciate that Mike Bailey was up about 3:30 to get the breakfast going, and his family, they did a lot of work, hauling a lot of stuff that day. But it was exciting to see some of the state people that are running for some offices and national offices show up that day as well. So I'm excited about it.
Thank you. Tony?
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a couple things real quick. Ambassadors meeting is this week, but it's moved to 11:30 a.m. on Thursday. I'm kind of excited about that because it's an evening meeting again.
You guys can meet them.
Idea Inc. will meet Thursday morning, so it's going to be an early morning, so one side or the other. The EDGE process is now open. It will close June 17th. Applications are on our website, both the full one and then we have the event funding short app that is usable, just more appropriate, and they're labeled. If anybody has any questions, please direct them to me, and I'll be happy to help them through that process. Force is on Monday at 11 a.m. and on May 11th, so next week, there's going to be an event at the high school. I want to point out I didn't name it, but it's called Adulting Day, and Adulting Day is how to be an adult and all the different factors to go into being an adult. And so the city staff is going to participate. From utilities, how to set up utilities, these are the things you have to consider. Mayor, I believe you're going to come be able to talk to the kids. It's going to be outside, weather permitting, of course. It's been moved outside, so looking forward to taking part in that. City staff is going to be representing there from 9 to 11 in the morning. We look forward to it, getting to interact with students and be part of the school. And I get to give a little bit of a bad time about the naming of it, sometimes only because my wife's the class sponsor. So.
What was the date?
She's involved in that, so.
Tony, what was the date for that?
The date is May 11th. And it's 9 to 11 a.m. I believe anybody can stop up and take a look. It looks like it's going to be a pretty interesting event. It's their second year doing it. We're happy to be invited. Engagement committee, as you heard before, now would probably be an appropriate time if council wanted to make an action on that matter.
So we need to have a motion put forward to, we don't want to eliminate the committee, we just want to retire it?
Yes, Your Honor. Remember when you had solutions, and the way that we looked at addressing that is for council to motion to suspend indefinitely. And what that does is if you want to bring that committee back at some point, you don't redo the resolution. You just say, okay, we are going to bring that committee back. It works under the same way. If you want to make modifications at that time, you can. But it doesn't get rid of the committee. It just allows it to go into a state of suspended animation, if you will.
So we want to, tell me the word again, we want to.
Motion, I would recommend that council motion to suspend the engagement committee indefinitely.
The chair would ask for a motion to suspend the engagement committee at this moment and have it ready if we need it back.
Your Honor, I'll make that motion.
Okay,
Second.
Councilman Pronto has the motion and Councilman Bailey has the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Mayor's comments, I'll try to move mine along. I appreciate the budget committee meetings that I get to. I missed a couple, but I do appreciate the ones I get into. Thanks for all the hard work that staff puts into those, and it's important that we have a feel for what we're doing as elected officials. The dog park was amazing. Too bad Kyle's not here. He and the Rotary Club of Riverton did a lot of that work, and also did a lot of the city staff. So I appreciate the city staff sticking in there and getting that work done. The Boys and Girls Club had a reception at my house, and that was a lot of fun. I anticipate my wife will start to talk to me again in a few weeks. And then we were able to get up really early and go down to the breakfast, which was amazing. $130,000 was raised, which is about half their budget per year. And the governor did a great job, and it was just fun to see a lot of Riverton people there. And a lot of staff was there, and I appreciate their participation and their donations and all of that. They do have a wonderful system of not letting you out the door until you cough up your money. So, a good arrangement. We went from there right to the meeting with the governor, and we got about 40 minutes with the governor, and we got to talk about some very specific items that we need to have done. I also had a meeting with Mr. Martinez. He's got opportunity to put some artwork in Riverton, and we'll look forward to seeing that. We attended FTAG. FTAG is a great meeting. Tony went with me. It takes about 4 hours, 5 hours, and it's just a good meeting. Then I went back to the ambulance meeting, and what we really need to know about the ambulance is the care level on the ambulance is a real reality. And so maybe we can't afford what we got. And so if we can't afford it, we need to discuss that. And Riverton and Lander probably pass this no matter what they do for the ambulance. But the big problem is that we don't want to lose those other funds that we've secured, the half cent and the 1 cent. And so the conversation was about 2 hours long, and we'll have another meeting, and we'll try to see where we can make that work. And we had legislators in the room. We had Senator Case, we had Representative Ottman and Representative Larson, had all the mayors in the room except for Pavilion, and we had 2 commissioners. And then we had a lot of staff from Lander, the treasurer and a number of other staff there, so I appreciate that. Tony and I met last night with the Victims Advocate group that we have in City Hall. They do a wonderful job, and I just want to tell them thanks. And they speak highly of our police department and the work that our police department's doing. This isn't easy work, and there's a lot of moving parts, and so I really appreciate how well our police work with them and how well they take care of our police. And what they were asking me for was what grants I wanted them to apply for, and so it was any grant that's available, right?
Yep.
So we do appreciate all the work that they do, and same with staff. So that's all I've got for now. Does staff have anything to add?
Your Honor, if I may?
Yep.
I want to clarify the price on the backhoe. I've been entering millions of dollars worth of figures into our budget this week, so nothing is sticking with me very well right now. We purchased, it was a wheel loader that we purchased. This was $109,185. And then we also spent almost $30,000 on a vehicle purchase for the sanitation fund for a truck. And then also we spent nearly $20,000 on the landfill remediation study. So those were the other expenses that we had in the sanitation fund this year.
Thank you. I knew you'd have those.
Quoted.
I have all the confidence in the world in you. Thank you. Any council have any questions? We stand adjourned. Thank you. At 9.